every campaign has to start somewhere. As much as we all love a climactic fight with an evil dragon or a power-hungry wizard, our heroes have a long journey ahead before they're ready for that. It can be easy to let the shiny abilities of higher level play make those first villains feel a bit anticlimactic. A dragon's terrifying breath weapon makes a goblin's nimble escape seem a bit silly. However, with some careful selection and a bit of creative editing, even low-level monsters can make for an exciting start to an adventure. So in this video, we're going to go over what makes a low-level monster work in D&D, and then cover some of our favorite underutilized low-level monsters. So what makes for a good low-level monster? For our money, it comes down to 4 key features: unique style, group tactics, loot, and most importantly, they point to a larger threat. Unique style gives the characters a feel for their enemy. This comes from the enemy type and your description as a DM. Are they color coordinated? How do they dress and look? Group tactics help make a fight fun without being too lethal. One big creature is almost always either boring, easy, or a TPK. Loot is the most obvious. The monsters should have some loot and a good reason to have it. Finally, they should point to a larger threat. By doing this, the low-level enemies don't feel like filler that they have to get over to get to the next level. Instead, it makes them feel like more of a symptom of the evil the party's soon to face. Now, we all know the classic D&D monsters that populate low-level fights. Iconic figures that often seem like the only choice. Goblins led by a bugbear, a pack of wolves in the mists outside Barovia, or a random group of bandits with no real backstory, who are surprisingly weak for a lifetime of combat on the open road. These options are all perfectly fine, and hit a lot of the requirements on our list. The classic band of goblins devoted to Maglubiet can make for a fun and dynamic trap-filled encounter. Unfortunately, the downside to being classic is that they're expected. An experienced party isn't going to be surprised by the abilities on display, and are more likely to treat the quest as a chore that will inevitably lead to the real plot. In the interest of avoiding that moment of cliché combat, we're going to be looking for the less often used members of the monster manual that might have eluded your notice. Even at higher levels, taking the time to look for less expected foes can make for more exciting encounters as the party grapples with an unfamiliar threat. A mind flayer with its colonies an intimidating threat, but you can get all of the mind control with a lot less of the expectations by using the Olithek and its servants instead. Don't be afraid to pull out the classics, but every campaign needs some spice, and an obscure monster can lend that to even seasoned adventurers. Okay, so that's enough preamble. It's time to go over our 4 picks for low-level monsters that can make for a fun encounter that leads to bigger and better things. Each of these options seems simple on the surface, but can truly pack a punch with a little fleshing out, and maybe a few stat block tweaks. First up are blights, corrupted spirits of nature that spread out from sites of foul magic. Now, canonically, these creatures have a haunting backstory. In an age-long past, a vampire named Gulthias was slain, but out of the stake driven into his heart, a terrible curse sunk into the world. A foul tree sprouted, and now Gulthias trees crop up in the dark corners of the world and spread corruption through the forest in the form of humanoid plant monsters called blights. This backstory is a bit specific, but it's easy to see how a DM could bend this concept, replacing the tree with the curse of a betrayed druid, or the corruption left behind by some foul magic ritual. Either way, this hits our most important requirement. Where there are blights, there's a source for their corruption. What quest lies ahead for our heroes as they track this infection to its source? Blights do a lot of important work to make an adventure more interesting. They almost all sport false appearance, meaning ambushes galore as the party navigates a dark and haunted forest. Not to mention some incredible extras squirreled away in descriptions. The needle blights are living alarm spells that can alert other blights to intruders. Vine blights can speak and lure the foolish into dark woods, and the razor vine blight is a wall-climbing terror that can sap the health directly from its foes. There's also the tree blight, but let's hold off on a CR7 party killer for our low-level adventure. So the blights have style, they travel in groups, and they point to a larger threat. To seal the deal, one can only imagine what kinds of items have been accrued by these strange plant monsters, and perhaps what kind of cursed bauble might be found in their crypts. Next up is a classic that can be used in countless different ways, a cult and their contract from the world beyond. The first choice to make is to what power are these cults seeking answers, secrets, or some dark desire? For a more comedic DM, an imp playing a pack of fools like a fiddle is a fun option. But for the more serious campaign, a gibbering mouther singing a horrible discordant song of its master beyond the stars can make for a terrifying encounter. These monsters provide theme more than anything, as the party encounters the members of this ill-intentioned group. Are your cultists covered in strange mouths? Do they reek of sulfur and brimstone? Maybe their skin has a strange translucence, beyond what even a sheltered, cloistered life could provide. The basic cultist and cultist fanatic make for a 1-2 punch, and probably more will be on the way in February with the new monster manual. The fanatic spell list can also be swapped around for a more dramatic or stylized fight. The other benefit is a cult can have members galore. Guards, apprentice wizards, you name it. The flexibility can make for intense encounters as you navigate hidden temples and ritual sites, all leading up to a struggle with some final creature that itself is just a shade of whatever greater threat the cult was intending to grab. Loot is easy to come by in ritual components and magical oddities, and the style is completely up to you. With enough prep time, this can be an arc-spanning mystery of strange clues and foul rituals. When it comes to unique style, there might not be a better option than Modrons. These clockwork creatures come from the plane of law to straighten things out that have tipped out of the laws of reality. It doesn't take much of a leap to imagine how this adds up to a greater adventure. Some magical mishap or otherworldly influence has sent an area topsy-turvy. Eating makes you hungrier, gravity's half as strong, the stars move in strange ways in the sky. The Modrons arrive and set about to fixing the problem at any cost, working in squads that only communicate within their strange hierarchy. Soon, the players are forced to intervene and not only stop the Modrons, but also solve the issue before more agents of law arrive. Modrons come in a variety of styles: mono, duo, tri, quad, and pentadrones. Each commands the ranks below it and listens to the ranks above it. Now, the stat blocks are pretty simple, but they do offer a number of options from easy cannon fodder to flying quadrones. This is where the loot they can provide comes in. These stat blocks are easily punched up with a magic item or a bottle of alchemist fire. These treasures can be made to be from the alien world of Mechanus or to be scavenged from the area. With the threat of whatever strange phenomenon they're trying to stop looming, they push the party into increasingly strange and dangerous situations while reality itself warps around them. Our final pick are animated items. Anything from the imposing animated armor to the humble animated broom. These life-giving constructs can cause havoc and mayhem as the army of an artificer gone mad, or they could be the result of some kind of well of wild magic running rampant in ancient ruins. This gives a wide variety of options to point the party towards a larger threat that needs addressing. This variety of options makes combat encounters dynamic and interesting, with the added benefit that an animated sword is a few damage dice away from becoming an animated greatsword or even an animated bow and arrow. Plus, the potential for an armory turned ambush will have the party afraid of unattended treasure for the rest of the campaign. When it comes to style, the animated menagerie makes for a fun or scary feel depending on how you narrate it. A Scooby-Doo style romp through halls and castles can make for a fun adventure, while the insistent haunting of a poltergeist can make for a far more pressing encounter. As far as loot's concerned, options abound. First and foremost, being a recently disanimated sword that turns out to have a magical property or two. Personally, the first thought in our mind is a sword that upon being bested in combat becomes either a familiar or a faithful weapon that will attack by itself as a bonus action. Just be careful not to put too many in any one combat. An outnumbered party in D&D tends not to do very well. Now, all of these are great low-level monsters that will point the party in a new direction and give them some new toys to play with. However, for the DM that has some extra time, you can take it a step further with just a little customization. A lower AC suit of leather armor trying to smother lone party members could add an element of real fear to an encounter. And a cult sporting some new and strange abilities given by their weird master can spice up an otherwise normal encounter. More than that, a themed magic item or two peppered among their number can inspire the party to tackle every new threat they encounter, with the promise of a new reward behind them. Next time you're looking to kick off your campaign with some style, give a colony of blights or a marching band of modrons a try. Tweaking a few details can help give each enemy character and draw the PCs in as they scrounge for items and try to figure out what the greater evil is at the root of their current plight. Who could resist fighting off a swarm of animated weapons only to discover the proud sword of a knight looking for a new master to fight evil? Building unique encounters with fun additions can make the start of any campaign just as fun as the big swings down the road. What are some of your own favorite low-level monsters? What kind of magical items would you see buried in a grove of blights? Stay foolish.